Welcome to an exclusive podcast for Vajiram and Ravi. Today we are joined by Shatakshi Sinha, who has secured All India Rank 204 in the Civil Services Examination 2024. We have already recorded a podcast with Shatakshi, where we are discussing the prelims, mains and interview stage preparation. But now today we are exclusively discussing about Sociology optional because she has secured one of the highest marks in Sociology and probably the highest marks in Sociology. This year she has scored 290 marks. In paper 1, she has scored 153 and in paper 2, she has secured 137 marks. Last year, her score was 253 marks. So compared to the last year, this year, she has made a jump of 37 marks. So we would like to know the strategy about Sociology. So before moving that, hi Shatakshi.
Hi, sir.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, sir.
How is your mom?
She's good, sir.
How did she receive the news?
So she was ecstatic.
And your father?
Same, he was
Because
proud.
I know about your father that you missed your degree
Yes, sir.
at Jabalpur. And your father made all those arrangements to brought your degree to Delhi on the day of the interview.
So within 10 hours.
And I made a remark jokingly that your father had to break into his own house.
Yes, sir.
So he told someone to get into the house, get your degree. Then that man went to Bhopal.
Jabalpur to Bhopal by train.
Jabalpur to Bhopal by train. And then from Bhopal, he came to Delhi.
By flight.
This is what he made the effort. Now imagine all those years what he must have done for you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, my parents had been a huge support.
Tell me your story. Who are you?
Sir, I'm from Jabalpur. I remember since class 4th, I decided that I wanted to be a civil servant. So my journey began there only. So I graduated in humanities, keeping in mind that I would like to continue with sociology. So there it began. And then after my graduation, I started appearing for civil services. So this was my
Let's
fourth
go
attempt.
back. Your mother is from Gorakhpur and your father is from Allahabad.
Yes, sir.
Your grandfather was posted in Jabalpur.
Yes, sir.
And that is how the family shifted to Jabalpur.
Jabalpur, yes, sir.
Okay. So how is Jabalpur?
So it's good. The small, peaceful city, simple people, and simple, laid-back life, which feels at peace. Different than the metro cities. The rush is not there. People are simple, enjoying their lives.
Okay. So there you did your graduation. Means you did your schooling in Jabalpur and then went to graduation.
From Jabalpur itself.
And you studied sociology in your graduation
Yes.
as one of the subjects.
One of the subjects.
So was it planned that you were going to appear for civil services with sociology as an optional?
Sir, actually, I took 3 subjects in graduation: sociology, pol science, and economics. So initially, I decided I will go with economics. Then in graduation second year, I thought, no, I will go with pol science. And then when I came to third year, I just loved sociology, reading all these years. So I then finally narrowed it down to no, I will pursue sociology as my optional.
And economics was haunting you because in all your mock interviews, you were asked questions about economics.
Economics, yes, sir.
Considering economics was one of your subjects. Okay. Did the background help you in choosing the optional?
In choosing the optional,
Means did it prepare you? Means your college studies, did it prepare you to choose sociology as an optional?
it made me acquainted with the subject. So when I started studying sociology as an optional, it was not entirely new. I read something before, the thinkers, I knew something. So all I had to do was prepare them deeply now. I was well acquainted with that. Like students are suggested to go into NCRTs to get the hold of the subject. So I did not have to do that. I did not read sociology NCRTs because I was already acquainted as it was my graduation subject. So in a way, it created a background.
So when did you start preparing for civil services formally?
During my graduation years, I did some syllabus mapping and these all things. Formally, I started after my graduation. So in 2020, my graduation was done. And in 2021, I appeared for the first time for the exam.
Okay. So how did you choose your sources, means study material, coaching institutes, or gathered all the sources needed for sociology as an optional?
I did my sociology foundation course from Jabalpur, online classes I took in 2020. After my graduation was done, I took the foundation course because I could not come to Delhi. That I wanted to come to Delhi, but due to COVID, there were restrictions, so I did not come to Delhi. I prepared from home. And that's it. I started making notes out of that. And I consolidated my sociology notes in that year only. In 2021 till January, February, my notes of sociology were totally consolidated. I still have those notes and I study from that only.
So you referred some of the online sources and offline sources of different coaching institutes or the study materials which was available.
Yes.
Okay. So now we'll jump to the strategy. Okay, just tell me the difference between the last year's strategy and this year's strategy, because last year you scored 253 marks in sociology and this year your score is 290.
Yes.
So you must have done something remarkable, because after 250 what happens is to add every mark, it becomes a daunting task. Okay, we have seen that between 220 to 250 a lot of students score in sociology lie. Okay, in any optional that is where the range lies. But after 250 what happens is it becomes very difficult to score. Okay, so from 253 you made a jump of 37 marks. Now I want to specifically know that what are the changes you made, okay, to get this score.
Okay. So firstly, my preparation was very simple. When I scored 253 and when I scored 290, my preparation was always simple. Those 4 registers, 2 paper 1 and paper 2, 2 registers for paper 1, 2 registers for paper 2. That was my base. That I did in my first mains. In second mains also, I referred to those notes only, multiple revisions. But what I did this time was, I referred to topper copies this time. Especially Medha Anand ma'am. She was sociology topper last year, I think. And
she was our student, by the way.
Yes, of course.
Mahapatra sir conducted a podcast with her.
Okay. So I referred to her copies, and there was, I think, Prakhar Kumar sir's copy. He scored very high marks in paper 1, I think around 170 something. So I used to refer to his answer sheets. So that gave me a clue about how to apply my gathered knowledge. I had knowledge, but how to apply that knowledge, how to use that knowledge to answer the question, that was missing. That I gained from these topper copies. And when I gave test series, so whatever solution I got from there, I joined test series of Vision and Vajiram. So whatever inputs I got from the test series, I added to those 4 registers only. I kept adding to that and I then kept revising. And one more thing which I did was making short notes out of these notes. I made 4 5 handouts. Firstly, about thinkers, a glossary of thinkers. 3 columns. Firstly, thinkers, then topic, the main topic, for example, religion. The subtopic, for example, sects and cults, science and religion, and secularization, communalism, whatever, like that. And then the third column, thinkers. What are thinkers are related to that. This for paper 1, paper 2. Then I made a glossary of definitions to start the introduction, concrete 4 pages, all the definitions, 4-5 pages, all the important definitions. Then I made a handout of mind maps. All my 4 register notes, I made a mind map. For paper 1, I made, I think, 10-12 pages mind maps, skeleton kind of all my notes, and for paper 2 the same. And these mind maps helped me create a linkage between paper 1 and paper 2. For example, religion is a part of paper 1 as well as paper 2. So the mind maps of paper 1, I compared it with paper 2. So then I tried to link it using paper 1 thinkers and theories in paper 2, using paper 2 examples in paper 1. And last, I made a handout of jargons. From my notes, whenever I used to study, I kept a notepad and I used to note down whatever important for jargon appeared in the notes. For example, collective conscience and heterogeneity, interdependence, and all these sociological jargons. I made a list out of that too. So this is what I did different this time.
So you're not referring to the books, you are just referring to your notes.
Yes, in my notes, I made the notes out of the course I took, and then I kept adding to it. 2 books I referred. Apart from that, Harlumbus and Holborn, selective.
Big one or the small one?
The blue one.
The blue one is the big one.
The big one.
The blue book.
The blue book. And there is a book called Essential Sociology by, I think, Nitin Sangwan sir. He is an IAS officer. So he has whatever deficiencies. For example, paper 2, I don't find any good books for that. So Essential Sociology helped me a lot in filling the gaps in paper 2. There are some topics like deprivation or bonded labor. I could not get good notes for them. So Essential Sociology helped there. So these 2 books, and my didn't read it separately. Whatever was important from those books, I added to my notes. Only 4 registers I had.
So did you prepare the paper 1 and paper 2 separately, or you were just choosing the common topics from paper 1 and paper 2? For example, there is a way to read both paper 1 and paper 2 topic wise or paper wise. So what was your approach?
I did it paper wise. I made initially when I started studying making notes, that was paper wise. When I used to revise during mains, that was also paper wise. But interlinking, I told you I made handouts of mind maps. So that mind maps, I did the interlinking there. So I knew in my notes, this is the topic in paper 1, this is the topic in paper 2. I made a note out of that. What could be used?
For example? For example, religion and society.
Religion and
is
society.
common in both the papers.
Yes, I give the example of that. Family, for example,
Family,
contemporary kinship network. For example, paper one theories, Anne Oakley's theory could be used in
Yes.
Indian family patriarchy and all
Okay.
those areas. So that I did.
So for Indian sociology, did you refer to the current affairs news which is there in the newspaper or in the magazines? How helpful was this, the current affairs news?
Actually, what I think is current affairs, it is always said ki, in paper 2 current affairs is required, but sociology is essentially a very static subject because society
Hold
does
on.
not.
Because sometimes what we consider is sociology, there are some portions which is very static, and there are some portions which is very dynamic. So in sociology, what happens is, means we say that generally in paper 2 of all the optionals, there is some dynamism, okay, where the current affairs news come in handy. Okay. So, but you are saying that it's essentially a static paper because you must have changed the approach from the last year attempts to this year attempt.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I say that because it's sociology. It's a study of society. And the society, even when it is changing, evolving, that doesn't happen in weeks. Ki society was different last week, patriarchy existed, and this week there is matriarchy. That doesn't happen.
Okay.
Society takes time in evolving. So 2, 3 years, 4 years minimum, there is a trend in society which does not change. For the 2, 3 years minimum, the trend will stay same. So collect examples which are, the examples would be very broad. Particular example, this happened last week and I'm quoting that as example, that I don't think that works very much. So I did not focus much on current affairs, even in paper 2. I had some examples which I used repetitively. For example, in caste system, there is an example of, I think, IIT Bombay 2014 study that 56% of SC/ST students feel discriminated against. So I still use that. 2014 study that is still relevant in 2025 exam.
Okay.
So that is what I'm saying. The current affairs you could collect, that will add value, but it is not, there's no pressure, because if you use more of the current examples now, so either it will give an impression of a generic GS answer, or otherwise if you have to use, connect it with any thinker. For example, if you're using any festival that happened, it was for example Mahakumbh. Say Mahakumbh happened right now, so link it with Imel Durkheim. What did Imel Durkheim had opinion about Mahakumbh? For example, it will give collective effervescence. Of course, what opinion he had about that. Why Mahakumbh was so revered? Because of the collective effervescence. So you have to, even if you're using current example, make sure that you connect it with any thinker or any theory. For example, you cannot just write in, for example, in paper 2, the cases of suicides are rising. You cannot just write, okay, so quota suicides and end it there. No. Quota suicides is an example of fatalistic suicide according to Durkheim. The students feel more morally regulated, and which creates a pressure. You have to explain that. So
there are 4 types of suicide in Imel Durkheim's theory. So we'll have to give example for each of these.
And explain it. That is what this also I did different this time. Like last year, I used to write example like GS. In GS, what we do, we write 10 points in 10 marker, 10 to 12 points, and we just randomly throw an example. For example, Keshwanand Bharti case. That's it. But in sociology, what happens is you have to give less points but explain those examples. For example, the suicide I mentioned. You cannot just write ki quota suicide. For example, what is quota suicide? The examiner deserves a certain kind of maturity and sociological analysis. So you have to analyze quota suicide sociologically.
Okay, so don't lose your thought. To take a point which you were discussing earlier, for example, you don't quote individual incidents. Okay, for example, there are cases of suicide. Okay, now individual cases of suicide cannot be quoted in the exam. What we can do is we can just discuss about the general trend. If the suicide cases are increasing or decreasing, then we can quote that as a trend, not the individual incidents of suicide.
And even if you're doing, connect it with the theory and explain it well.
Okay, merely mentioning is not required.
It just looks like you're randomly throwing in something.
Okay, we'll have to relate it.
You have to give in, firstly, like for you're making a point. So there is some questions, you are writing 5 points in that question. So for example, in third point, you're using some example. You have to connect that example with that point, with the third point, and overarching theme of the question as well. So that is why example minimum, you need to explain it in 3. I did this time, explaining the examples.
Like we do in the essay, that you cannot simply throw an example. You will have to substantiate that example with the evidences and the issue which you are discussing in the paragraph.
Yes, for example, somebody is talking about compassion. You cannot just write Ratan Tata. What did Ratan Tata did, which is related to compassion? You have to explain that.
So last year you were just saying Ratan Tata. This year you said that Ratan Tata did so and so.
That is why he is compassionate, and that is what we should learn. We should learn, no, that doesn't come in sociology, what society ought to be, but what is compassion, and explain it. That is what I'm saying.
So this must have made some difference.
Yeah, it must have.
Okay. You have also prepared notes for how to deal with the 10 markers and how to deal with the 20 markers.
Yes, I did that specifically.
Okay.
For 10 markers, I analyzed some copies of some students scoring less. So the main thing which I noticed was they are not doing well in 10 markers. They are good in 20 markers. There are only 6 20 markers around.
The reason being?
The reason being 20 markers, they get space. So there is sociology is a humanities subject. We tend to exaggerate and expand the answer. But in 10 marker, there is less scope to do that. In 10 marker, you need to become a little science background student. You need to talk objectively to the point. For example, some question come about social facts of Durkheim. So define social facts according to Durkheim. Then straight away start with rules to study social facts. The points, if criticism you have to add, just add that and conclude it. That is what you do in 10 markers. So that students miss out. They just start expanding thing, and then what is asked in the question, they start in the next page. Till then the examiner thinks, okay, this person doesn't know the answer, and gives lesser marks. So straight away starting with what is asked in the question. And see, I prepared the answer structure. There are two things in answer writing. Answer structure and answer content. Content most of the students have through coachings, and content ki problem arises when they do not have consolidated content. Okay. So consolidate your content, that will solve the problem of your content. The structure. Introduction, introduce with either definition or context. Have a glossary of definition, and then it will be a no-brainer. A question on religion comes, patriarchy comes, or anything comes, just write the definition. Okay. Then contextual introduction. So in that, either use a thinker or any sociological jargons. But
can
please
you give an example?
For example, a question comes about functional analysis of the society. Start with Parsons.
Talcott Parsons. Okay.
So you can start with what he thinks about social system, and do not repeat what is asked in the question, just rephrasing it and putting it as an introduction. That is very off-putting.
Okay.
Something new.
A lot of students do that.
That is very off-putting. Just rephrasing what is asked in the question. It is not.
Like, what is your name? My name is this.
Yes.
Okay.
Active voice to passive voice. That doesn't work. So next, then body. Directly put the heading from the question. What is asked in the question will be in flowery language.
Especially, this is how we were taught in the school. That this is how the introduction should be written. If somebody is asking that, you should you write the question, and then at the end you will just write the answer.
No, that's...
Okay, just remove why, how. Okay, and then write the whole question, and then at the end you just write 2 or 3 more sentences or words. That makes the introduction. Okay.
So that's a process of learning and unlearning. We have to unlearn certain things, have to learn new things. So that is about introduction. Directly heading from the question, what is asked in the question, and conclude. Never conclude in criticisms. That I saw in few copies. Students are concluding in criticisms. Write criticism. It will add value even in 10 markers in 3-4 lines, not in points, just 3-4 lines paragraph. And then conclude. Despite these criticisms, Emil Durkheim essentially demystified the subject of religion and encouraged its empirical study. So
you have to write criticism in irrespective of the question, nature of the question. If the question is, let's suppose we generally say that if the question is about critically analyze, okay, there we focus more on criticism.
But then you have to write an alternative perspective also before conclusion. Whatever is the question, write the alternative perspective briefly.
Means not to obsessively focusing about analyze, explain, discuss.
No.
Okay.
I used to do that. I just, for value addition, not much, just 3-4 lines would be enough. If the question is asking to criticize, write criticisms, then write relevance. If the question is about relevance, write the relevance, but briefly also mention criticism. Especially in 20 markers. In 10 markers, there is less scope. You can avoid this. In some 10 markers, you could do that. In some 10 markers, you could avoid. But in 20 markers, there is scope to do that. And then don't conclude with criticism. That is because I'm saying, because giving due respect to the thinkers.
Okay.
They are sociological thinkers, and sociology is your subject. You need to give due respect to these thinkers. You cannot just criticize them blatantly.
Okay.
Use other thinkers to criticize them. don't be a critic yourself, because they are the sociologists and we are just students studying sociology. We are not sociologists. So giving due respect to this sociologist, despite you agree with them or not. Don't write personal opinion.
Okay.
So that is about. And 20 marker, there is a scope to expand the definition, but by the end of the first page, start directly hitting the demand of the question. The examiner must know, okay, he said all those things. Now he is directly coming to the demand, because few years back, 2-3 years back, the 20 markers, 4 pages used to come. Since 2 years, it has been reduced to 3 marks. So there is a less scope for beating around the bush in 20 markers as well, but you can beat around the bush for more than half a page, for 70% page, but from the last, you need to give importance to what is asked in the question. And some generic points apart from 10-20 markers. Firstly, there is a debate about points versus para format. I used to write in points format. I am comfortable with that.
And that is how the Ms. Medha Anand also wrote.
Medha Anand ma'am wrote in that format. So her writing style resonated with mine. So points format, I was comfortable in. If somebody is comfortable in para format, that is fair enough.
Okay.
And second,
but you'll have to write the introduction and the conclusion in para formats, right?
Yes, that would be in para format.
Okay, we cannot start with the points.
Yes,
points is for the body.
And indentation.
Just discussing it because these are the questions also raised.
Yes, by the students. I am also once aspirant, always aspirant.
For example, a 10 marker, should we start writing the answer, or should we just write 2-3 lines of introduction? Introduction is always required. The conclusion is always required.
Non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
Right.
Introduction and conclusion is non-negotiable. In the body, you can just use the point format.
Yes. And if you're writing criticism, you can write that in paragraph. But main body, what is asked in the question, I used to write it in point format. I was more comfortable in that.
Okay.
And secondly, about indentation, like whatever points you're writing, do not just be very creative in that. If use 1, 2, 3, 4 all over the paper, or use bullet points, whatever you're using, keep it similar. It gives a more mature look to that. So that is headings, write headings from the question, put it in a box, underline the keyword.
In block letters or in?
I used to write in small letter. Block letters waste some time.
Okay.
And as you suggested, this tip you suggested me during my mains, try to fetch 1 extra mark in every question. That is 9.
I must have learned from somewhere.
Yes, you suggested.
That is how you just pass on.
And I applied that. So maybe there are 19 questions. If I did, and how to do this? Just try to make what can I do in this question? What can I write? Something that would add value and fetch me. If the examiner is giving me 5 marks, he will say, no, I will give 6 marks.
Okay.
So do that. So there are 19
making a conscious effort.
Yes, making
to improve the quality of the answer.
So by that, you can increase your marks by 19 marks from 19 questions. So that is just by being more conscious and being more aware. And go through topper copies. And one
this time they will go through yours.
Hopefully. And one thing I wrote, for example, in paper 2 answers, there are some questions which we do not have sociology notes for, static notes. For example, new education policy, something came in paper 2. The points will become generic. So there is one, I would not say template, because templating is not good, but one template I got it from some test series feedback, I think. So analyze what NEP, for example, new education policy or women reservation bill in parliament from these perspective. Functional. What would the functionalist thinkers say about what you do not have to say about NEP? What functionalists think? What would Parsons think about these things?
Okay.
What would conflict? Second, functional perspective, then conflict perspective. What would Marx say about this? Thirdly, feminist perspective. What would Anne Oakley say about these things?
Okay.
Then subaltern perspective. The subaltern class, what would they think about this? The subaltern thinkers. Then symbolic interactionists, what would they think about this? You do not have any thinkers? No worry. Give heading, functionalist perspective, conflict perspective, symbolic interactionist perspective. And for doing this, you have to be crystal clear with these theories and these thinkers. So, for example, feminist perspective for NEP, you should be thorough with liberal perspective. Liberal feminist will say it is very good. Education will empower women, but the radical feminist would say it is one of the way to control women. The controlling images in the books that women are cooking in the kitchen. So that will create a negative impact on women empowerment. So you need to be thorough with these perspectives, these strands in sociology to analyze any random question in that way. So that is how you can differentiate between a GS society answer in GS1 and sociology answer. NEP can be a question in paper 1 GS also. and NEP can be a question in paper 2 GS, paper 2 sociology also. So, but the answer has to be different in both.
I remember in one of your mocks, you were asked a question about how do the feminists see the international relations.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And one of the panelists quoted you the Ann Tickner.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are how the thinkers can be related not only till the mains stage, but even in the interview stage.
Interview also.
You will be asked about some of the thinkers. Okay, I remember one of the panelists asked one of the candidates whose option was sociology that explained the 4 types of suicides explained by Durkheim, and then give one example for each one of them. The example should be from the current affairs. Means you will have to relate it from the current, which is happening now. Okay, so that is how you need to be thorough with the thinkers.
Yes, sir. You need to be a sociologist while reading all the subjects. That's how you will get some examples. The static examples I'm talking about that you can use in ethics, in GS2, GS3, internal security, even if you're referring to Manipur crisis or anything, you can analyze it sociologically. Maybe that question will not come in exam, but that will give you a perspective. As you always say, you need to have imaginative thinking in all the papers. So that is how it helps.
Now tell me about the test series and how important is to write the tests, because ultimately you will have to write all these what you have studied into the paper. Okay, and you will have to write for a stretch of some days. Okay, so how did you practice writing?
So since I'm from humanities background, I was always good in writing answers. So I did not need much preparation. In first mains, I started this first time I started writing after my prelims results were out. So my answers in sociology were...
So in the first attempt you started writing after the prelims results were out? Out. Means you already had lost a month?
After prelims, yes. After 10-15 days.
Okay.
And then 10-15 days I prepare, and then after a month I wrote after prelims exam. So I did less answer writing practice.
In the first attempt?
In the first attempt.
So we can see a change between the first attempt and the second attempt?
So that's what I'm saying. I'm from humanities background.
Okay.
So writing is my strong point. I can write well. So but many sociology, engineering or science background students also, they need to do more answer writing practice. This time also I started answer writing after prelims only. When I could not qualify my first mains, even after that I did not focus much on answer writing because I thought I will do it later. But after prelims, test series played a very important role for me. Test series are very important. Whether to do it before prelims for the year or after prelims between those 3 months, that students need to take a call. I took a call and I did it after my prelims and it helped me. Test series is a must, but you have to take a call when.
So where did you write your test series, and also any specific feedback which made an impact?
So test series I joined at this year in Vajiram, Sociology test series. Feedback, I mentioned the feedback that you gave. Just try to increase 1 marks, fetch 1 more marks. So that is the suggestion I could remember right now.
Of Ramayana. The story between the Jamwant and Hanuman.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was that old wise bear. Okay, I was not wise, but I was the aged bear. Okay, who just saw the Hanuman. Okay, and I realized that you have that potential. I did no such thing. Okay, there are a lot of candidates who are the Hanuman. Okay, or Lord Hanuman. Okay, the Jamwant is just made them realize that, okay, this is what you can achieve. So you are that potential who always were like this. Okay, and remember, one day you walked into 22B.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you walked down and you said, I want to see Ajay sir. Yes. Angrily. Okay, I pulled out the question paper and your test paper and gave it to you. Okay, but the next time you came, I said you need to sit down.
Yes, sir.
And then we sat down and I discussed everything with you, where you were strong. Okay,
where you were strong, where I was weak. Yes, sir.
Where you are very strong. Okay, so I must have played that role of Ramavan.
Yes, sir, and you wrote a remark in my copy, just follow these suggestions and you're qualifying mains. So that plays a role. A motivation, it gave me a kind of motivation. So that having a mentor plays a... Especially,
in ORN especially, what happens is sometimes if you lend your ear to someone, most of the things is done. They just want to listen to someone. It means I have to say something, please listen to me. Okay, and that is how you just stand by them and they will do most of the things on their own. Everybody who is going to choose sociology as an optional, what will happen is there are 2 categories of the students. One who are the beginners, who are just thinking of choosing sociology as an optional, and there will be students who are trying to improve their marks. Okay, for example, last year they could not score well in sociology and they are stuck. They just don't know how to improve the marks now. Okay, because they did everything. They are preparing for the last 4 years, 5 years. And I met some of the students where they are thinking that, okay, now I have tried everything. I've gone through the corpus copy. I've analyzed everything. I'm just using the thinkers properly. Still, I'm unable to score high. Okay, so there will be two sorts of the suggestions. One's for the beginners who are just thinking of taking sociology as an optional, and also those beginners who have already started studying sociology, but now how to approach sociology. Okay, so just make this distinction, makes the suggestions for the beginners, and then we'll move on to the repeaters who already have some advanced level of sociological knowledge.
Sure, sir. For the beginners, I would like to say, joining any course, just try to make sure you have consolidated notes. Just consolidate your notes from the coaching material, from the books, Herlombers,
No, just go back. Why to choose this optional? Somebody who is thinking of choosing sociology as an optional. Okay, because this year we are seeing some very good rankers with sociology.
When I chose sociology, I read it somewhere. Choose the optional. Firstly, you are interested in, and secondly, the subject you think you can comfortably study continuously for 12 hours straight.
Okay.
So economics, I wasn't sure I can study it for 12 hours straight. But with sociology, I felt very comfortable. And these things, what is the trend, are also sometimes important. But I did not consider this that time. What is the trend?
Perfectly. Some options can go up some year,
some
go down
some
next
years.
year.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was not my concern. That time I
This is scaled down.
Yes, scaled. Sometimes they're scaled down. So I took purely based on interest. I was interested in studying sociology, and it had sometimes that is also a concern. It has a short syllabus. Some optionals are very bulky, very lengthy.
And there are topics repeated, which is there in the paper 1, we can directly relate to the paper 2.
And their repetition from PYQs. I think that is true for most of the optionals.
Yes.
Here also.
So did you solve the PYQs of sociology optional?
Yes, some toppers recommend that write answers for all the PYQs. I did not write answer. I used to refer it multiple times so that I know what topics are important when I'm studying. So I referred to PYQs and made mental answers for those questions. Okay. And firstly, for the beginners, make consolidated notes in 4 registers, 6 registers, whatever you are comfortable with. Secondly, revise these 2-3 times. When you, for example, prelims is in May, you will start your preparation by February. Till January 31st, you must revise these notes, consolidated notes, 2 to 3 times, minimum 2 times. That and PYQs. These are for the beginners. And what I will say about for the veterans, for the advanced, what they have to do.
Those who are trying to improve their marks.
Yes, that would also be applicable to the beginners. Firstly, refer to the topper copies, because there's not much scope in doing about the notes. If you do not have consolidated notes, please consolidate it. Okay. Then refer to topper copies. Try to find your mistake. What mistakes also, I will list down some common mistakes which are being done.
Please.
So that, and make your handouts. Like I said in the start of the interview, I made 4 handouts. So make those handouts, and the mistakes I will tell. Firstly, some students, if something is asked, they just replicate what is in their notes. They have revised it multiple times. It is always in the back of their head. They just replicate their notes, not molding it according to what is being asked in the question.
Okay. So they produce the notes as it is in the answer,
yes,
irrespective of the questions asked.
Yes, they will make flowchart what they have made in their copies and just replicate it. They're not molding the question according to their content, according to what is the language of the question. Okay. Firstly, understand what is being demanded the question. You already have content for most of it, and when you do not have content, I gave the template, functional analysis and all these things. So just mold it according to what is being asked the question. With every point, you need to address the demand of the question. That is important in optional as well as in other subjects as well.
So did you draw flowcharts or diagrams in the answers?
10 marker, there is no scope. And 20 marker, sometimes you can do, but please don't overdo it.
Not required.
It's already we are writing in points. The optional paper requires a certain level of maturity.
Good.
We have to study the syllabus of bachelor's, bachelor's and master's in sociology.
Yes.
So it demands a certain level of maturity. The answers cannot be generic. The paper should not look generic. There needs to be some maturity. So flowcharts and all should be avoided. Secondly, don't complicate the preparation. Just consolidate your notes, study it repetitively. Thirdly, answering like GS answer, especially paper 2. I give the example of new education policy. What you would be writing in paper 1 or paper 2, GS1, GS2. Don't do that in optional paper 2. You have to make the difference. Secondly, lack of conceptual clarity about thinkers. You need to be crystal clear about what strand of sociology did Emil Durkheim belong to, Weber belong to. The basic difference between, you need to be crystal clear. What are their complementarities? What are their differences? This conceptual clarity is required, non-negotiable. For example, Parsons. Parsons is a functional thinker which can be used in paper 1 and across paper 2 whenever functional analysis is to be there. And common mistake is not explaining the example well. I mentioned it already. Explain the example very well. And lastly, need depth. Students tend to write, for example, in GS, I always recommend ki write 10 to 12 points in 10 marker and 15 to 17 points in 15 markers in GS. But in sociology, in 10 markers, just write 5 to 6 points. 4 to 5 will also work, but you have to explain them well. We do not need breadth. We need depth in this.
Okay.
So write less points, explain it well. And even in 20 markers, write around 10 points, 10 to 12 points, but explain it very well.
Okay. Means wherever possible, we just explain it.
Yes.
Merely mentioning is not required.
Yes. So these are the mistakes which the students looking for improving their score could look into.
Okay. Yes. So your journey was 4 years long.
Yes.
Okay. In the first attempt, you could not clear the prelims. In the second attempt, you could not clear the prelims. In the third, you wrote the mains. And in the fourth, you are a rank holder.
Yes. Actually, sir, I consider it 7 years long because after my 12th, I started just getting into this. So I consider it a 7 year long.
So was there a moment when you felt like giving up?
No, many people have asked me this, sir, and I've always been no. I never felt like giving up. It might sound like I'm lying or anything, but I'm not. I never felt like giving up.
Never sounded like that.
Yes, sir. So I never felt like that. Even had I not cleared this time, I would have given the exam again. So I never felt like giving up. There was never a moment.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what happens is sometimes when you are preparing for the 4 or 5 years, especially people think of changing the optionals also. Because they have tried everything that optional. They're thinking, no, this is it. Okay. And then they get into a mode that, okay, where this optional is doing well. For example, the topper is from PSIR. So what will happen is some of the optionals will get attracted. Okay. People will get attracted to some of the options, especially those who are trying for the last several years. Okay. And especially this happens with the optional. They think that, okay, I need to change this optional. Okay. What do you suggest to them? Suppose somebody is thinking that, okay, I need to change sociology as an optional because he has tried everything in sociology.
Sir, there is always a FOMO that something is always better. The grass is greener on the other side or something like that. I would never trade sociology for any other subject, but I would not even recommend. If you're terrible at it, that's a different scenario, and you made a whimsical decision of choosing sociology, that's a different subject. If sociology is not your subject, then you can change it. But give it, just try to analyze. Before taking this decision, you need to analyze what are your mistakes. Sometimes we are reluctant to accept our mistakes. So try to find, we think my answer is perfect, then also I'm not getting marks. That is not the case. There must be some mistake. Try to find that. And if you do not find that any mistake you're not able to find, then take a call.
So you never thought of giving up?
No. Nice. No, sir.
So what happens, every time we look for the motivation. Every time means every few days you feel something like, okay, this is not going well. So did you feel that, or what was the level of motivation, or how did you keep yourself motivated?
So studying continuously. That was my only motivation. When I'm feeling low, when I study, I feel good. So I used to study. Whenever I'm feeling low, whenever I'm feeling demotivated, I started my book. I remember I will also study even when I'm crying. I just study. Study gives me motivation. Reading, studying, these things give me always studying.
You don't have any quotes in your room?
Yes, Lord Krishna. Sir, I'm a believer. So there's Lord Krishna, some sayings. I just put it on a sticky note and I put it in my room. Karma nyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Just keep working. Work hard. I always say that there is no shortcut to success. You need to work hard and you need to be consistent. I worked hard for 2 days. Now I'm chilling for 5 days. That doesn't work. Working hard with consistency is what makes a difference. And even if you do not succeed, you won't have that guilt ki kash kar liya hota. That is the worst feeling ever. Ki kash kar liya hota. So I don't want to feel that.
Okay.
So I worked hard.
I
And
wish I had.
yes, I wish I had. So that is the worst feeling ever. So just keep working hard. That's it.
So anybody watching this podcast, especially those who have the sociology optional, please sit with a pad and a pen. Because if you are listening, just make sure that you are making the notes what ma'am has just explained. Okay, and then follow these advices into your paper and hopefully you will make it. Okay, all the best, Satakshi, for your future.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you very much.